Hello Kansas fans, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Let's Learn Leftoverture Guitar and Analysis series. Today, I'm going to tell you what's on my mind. That's right, I'm getting a little tired of all the wrong notes and all the bad bends that sound like a dying rodent, nay, a dying cow, nay, a dying horse that broke into the sewer that is your local guitar center. Now come, as we avoid all of these pitfalls with all of our mights through every single note, every single time change, every single chord progression, and a full detailed musical analysis of What's on My Mind by Kansas. Compared to what we've already seen on this album, this song is a bit more straightforward and rock-oriented, allowing us to let loose and just have a plain old good time in the process. But even the easy songs in the Kansas repertoire offer a unique challenge that most bands can only dream of delivering. And this all starts with a 3-layered guitar orchestration right out of the gate, with each guitar performing its own unique function. So let's take a look at these one by one and then layer them all up to see what's happening. Here's the first guitar. And it's just some simple power chords to lay down the foundational chord progression. And here it is real slow, check it out. It's got a bit of a syncopation. Repeat the same thing 3 times, and then this. Alright, now let's take a look at some of these chords. We're in the key of B flat minor, alright, with just straight up power chords, parallel fifths moving the entire time. Starting on B flat as our 1 chord. You hit that twice, then you hit this connecting F chord to bring us into the 2nd chord of the progression. Now that F chord doesn't count as a main chord in the progression, it's just a connecting note that brings us to G flat, which is the flat 6 chord. And then it brings us to another connecting chord in D flat, which goes right to E flat, and then playing that cool little riff with those parallel fifths with that kind of 16th note syncopation going on. So that's basically the root, the flat 6, and the 4 chord. Now, all of these are pretty much left ambiguous, but it's pretty much well established that that's a minor 1, that's a flat 6, and the 4 is really the only one that kind of has a little bit of ambiguity to it, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. But yeah, pretty much all that's going on. And the final 2 chords that end the entire part, that's E flat to A flat. That's a 2-5 going into the D flat, which is going to be the new 1 of the next section. Alright, so keep that in mind. On top of those chords, we have this incredibly easy, repetitive guitar line, just hitting a B flat over and over again. Now, ironically enough, this is also one of the loudest parts in this introduction. So let's check that out. Now this is almost excessively easy, especially for a prog rock band like Kansas, but we have to get to it nonetheless. And it's just 2 notes going from the 6th fret of the D string to the 8th fret of the D string, like this. With a nice little bit of vibrato, letting it fade out. And it just does that all the way through. It basically holds it out to the entire chord progression. But the one thing I will say, aside from it being the flat 7 to the root, is that when you play it on top of different chords, it creates some different colors, right? So obviously we have the flat 7 in the root that I just told you. That's what it sounds like on top of the B flat. But when it goes to the G flat, you get this sound. Check this out, ready? That's a nice sound. That's basically the 9th going to the 3rd, or the 2nd, a sus2 to the 3rd. And then on the E flat, it's the 4th going into the 5th, so creating a power chord sound, right? Flat 7 to root, 9th to 3rd, 4th Pretty cool, guys. Now let's get those power chords and that excessively simple lick on top of each other. Okay, now that we got the easy stuff out of the way, it's time to get into the first guitar solo, which is basically the third layer of this introduction. Now I put guitar solo in air quotes because, well, I'll explain a little bit later, but let's just listen to it and get into the parts first. A very quirky and peculiar solo indeed. I believe this solo was played by guitarist Rich Williams, you know, the guy that later got the eye patch on him, and the guy that previously was a mammoth red-headed dude from the middle of a Kansas Topeka field, with a giant Marshall to boot, by the way. Big, heavy tone. Now, this guitar solo is very, very strange, so let's get into it one by one, lick by lick, and let's see what's happening here. A lot of really cool rhythms and chromatic stuff that defy the conventions of hard rock guitar. Now this lick basically outlines the root notes of the progression, but in a very peculiar way. I'll play it slowly for you. Check it out. Alright, now, like I said, the first note starts on that B flat, going up chromatically up to the flat third of that chord, but it still starts on the root. Now the interesting part is we're hitting the root note here on the D string, 8th fret, and then immediately going to the 3rd fret to hit that doubled B flat up at the top. Like I said, very strange. Very cool, and that's 1 and a 2, okay? That's a pretty straightforward rhythm there. Then we hit this chromatic part. Alright, now that's syncopated. We actually don't hit the downbeat until we hit this G string note, alright? Now, essentially what's happening here is we have the B flat root to that flat 3rd, and then here, that's a B natural. That should not exist in this whatsoever, especially not on the beginning of the pattern, right? Alright, listen to that in terms of a B flat. You hear that? It sounds like absolute garbaggio. But because it's being played with this chromatic and strange, off-putting rhythm, it just sounds natural. It sounds kind of like a circus carnival with big, giant clowns. But check it out. Ready? Now, essentially, we have an 3E. Alright, so that note right here, that's that note on top of the G flat. That is a D flat. That's the 5th going to a G flat. Well, we're just outlining the 5th and the root. So, root note outline once again. Root, root. And then finally, we do this one. Alright, now that E flat hits on beat 1. So you got to make sure you anticipate all these notes at the proper time. Alright, I'll do it for you one more time. Now the quirkiness is far from over as we hit lick number 2, which has more syncopation than a Buddy Rich bag of bongos. And it comes off the heel of that last E flat. Ready? So we hit this E flat on beat 1, and then right on the next beat we do this. Alright, so like I said, highly syncopated, right? 2E and E, a Borean. 2E and E, a Borean. 2E and E, a Borean. That's the syncopation there. 2E and E, a Borean. Once again, a lot of chromatics, but this time we're in pretty much a B minor blues position, alright? So nothing too crazy here aside from the rhythm, alright? We're basically outlining B flat minor pentatonic. And that is used to get back into a B flat right after that. So far we definitely have a solid mix of chromaticism and blues chromaticism, alright? A couple different styles here. The second one, the second lick we just did, is more like a straight ahead blues thing with some extra syncopation. But the first one is more like a demented carnival. Let's see what else we have in store with lick number 3. So this is actually the first of 2 licks that do something very similar here. I'll play it slow. Alright, short and sweet, to the point. Now, we're on that root note that we resolved on before. Now there, we're are kind of using the harmonic minor scale, all right? That's basically the minor scale, B flat minor, with the raised 7th scale degree, but it still doesn't really sound like that. It still sounds like the same demented carnival blues line we got going on here. It's probably because he hits it so quickly that you don't really notice it's there, but it is an A natural, not an A flat. And you gotta slide into it just like that. And then nice sharp D flat right there. And then here we do this little chromatic thing. Now that's a line going 6, 7, and 8, and then 6, 7, 8 on the G, with a half step bend representing the 8th fret. Right? So you never actually hit the 8th fret. You have to go with a half step bend with plenty of vibrato. So pretty cool stuff. Usually the harmonic minor scale is very well defined as sounding almost classical. Well, it is a classical mode. Or even Egyptian, sounding of the desert. Kind of like this. In a cadential sense, a classical sense, it would sound like this. Alright, you hear that Bach in there, right? Without that bluesiness in the minor 7th, of course. But it's also kind of the desert as well. Listen to this. So definitely has a very colorful feel to it, a very specific sound, all right? Which is not reflected in this solo whatsoever. It's more like a bohemian blues that just sounds absolutely cartoonish and crazy. Listen. That sounds nothing like... Not even in the slightest does it even begin to sound like the B flat harmonic minor scale. Not even close. Listen. Not even a single iota of that scale is even frankly involved in this whatsoever. Now, this is almost like, it's a very sneaky way of doing this, by the way, a bohemian blues with the harmonic minor scale. It's like the king hiding amongst the common folk, or better yet, a redneck from Kansas hiding amongst the Excelsiites. This then continues into the conclusion of the first half of this solo. Check it out. Alright, let me play that slower for you. That's just a straight up pentatonic blues line. There's nothing to see here, but it comes after all that kookiness beforehand. And you do kind of have to shove that into the rhythm to make it fit, alright? Let me put those first 4 licks together here so we can really see the cohesion of what's happening. Nice and slow. The second half goes through a similar style, but with a little more range this time. And it's really just a lower octave of the previous idea. I'll start on that low B flat we ended the previous lick on. Watch. So all those ideas, that harmonic minor idea comes back again. Once again, not sounding anything like a harmonic minor. Check it out. And then coming into that flatted third, or that D flat right on there. And then we gotta hit this. Once again, syncopated, right? So the first 2 16th notes are 2 beats, or 2 16ths behind the next downbeat. And we also hit the final note before the next downbeat that happens. This is basically an E flat minor type of pattern here. Alright, this is modal. Alright, this is playing on top of the E flat chord that we have in the actual progression, right? So, honestly pretty cool, and it adds a little bit of continuity here because we have the same idea as this. It's the same exact rhythm, but using slightly different notes. Pretty cool if I say so myself. Next we get into some mid-range pentatonics with a little extra blast right at the very end. It's a very quick blip with a Chuck Berry beginning. Here we go. That's it. That's all I'm going to show you right now. Because the ending is totally different. Listen to that again. See how it has a Chuck Berry beginning to it? You know, Chuck Berry likes to do that. He basically invented that shidtola, alright? So give him some props for doing so. But so it basically starts on that downbeat. It's da ba da one and a ba da ba da ba da bow. That's essentially a 16th note triplet. And you just end it right there before we hit it to the next part. Just make sure you practice that a million times, and basically got real spastic, like that rodent I was talking about at the beginning of the song. Spastic squirrels, hanging out in trees, hanging on the branches, hanging on the leaves. Oh yeah. And finally we have the final lick, which I believe is the first real hook of this song. This part kind of grabs you more than the others. And it's essentially a 2-string unison bend. That means you're going to hold one string, the E string, and keep it static. And then you're going to hold the other string, the B string, and bend it a whole step. Alright? Check this out. You start off on the 6th and the 9th fret here, 69. Wow, boys. Very, very mature of you. So we go like this. Alright? Just a real quick one. Move down a whole step. Then we come up to here. Oh, not that one. Not that one either. Sorry, I was in the wrong key for a second. I thought it was B minor, but turns out B minor called. He wants his B flat minor back. Let's try that again. Watch. 6th fret here, down a whole step, and then up to here, then up to here, or down a half step, and then over here. That's basically a double bend. You hit that 14th fret. You do a whole step first, then come down a half step before finally coming back up again. Alright, before hitting a nice little bit of vibrato at the end. Don't hit that weak ass note that I just hit though. You gotta hit it like this. Just like that. And I told you that I found the one. She left me standing out in the cold. Oh yeah, now let's just take a look at these notes theoretically for a second. We have the root, the flat 7th, the minor 3rd, the 9th, and then finally, that's essentially the 4th, alright? And that happens on the E flat chord, silly. So this all makes sense with what we're looking at, and I don't really have much else to say except just make sure you're bending that B string all the way up to make sure they sound the same. And that last note you gotta hit real hard like a duck with a football. Now let's put those 3 licks together now, alright? We did the first 4, now let's do the final 3. Check it out. Hear how all of those licks go together so nicely? You really got to make sure you're doing that. Now that we have all of the licks, let's put them all together, all 7 of them. Lucky number 7 on the Leftoverture here. Let's check this out. Ready? Right from the beginning, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another interesting thing about this guitar solo, and the reason why I put it in air quotes, is how low it is in the mix. It's almost as if it's barely treated as something important, at least up until the ending. At least I don't hear much until the ending. I just spit in the air. That's disgusting. I can't believe I did that. But I'm going to keep talking because I can't stop. I can't be distracted by saliva coming out of my mouth. Alright, now, essentially, like I said, very low in the mix, and the other part, this part, the super easy part, the brutally easy part that I don't even want to talk about anymore, kind of steals the spotlight, which is kind of strange and unusual for a band like Kansas, you know? They want those bombastic guitar solos to be soaring over the top like an eagle, flying on a dragon, flying on a globe that has wings and breathes fire as well. Followed by the intro section, we are greeted by the first verse, which comes off the heels of the ending of the intro, which has a nice 2, 5, 1 chord progression to go right into the next section. So let's hear the nice, beautiful acoustic guitar passage that comes in here. Now you might have noticed something peculiar about the way that this acoustic part was played. How am I using an open D chord position to play in a song that I just said was in D flat major or B flat minor? That would be impossible. It would sound like doo-doo caca if you did that. Well, in the recording, there's an acoustic guitar that is tuned to E flat standard. That's right. They brought the entire guitar a half step down to play this chord progression using open voicings. And I'll show you how to play both, but let's go over the open voicings first. Very simple. It's just a regular old D chord. To an E minor, to this, that's a C sus2, B minor. Very nice. Has a little 1960s throwback to it. And then, now basically you're hitting D minor or D as the one chord, alright? To E minor, a direct 2 chord. Alright, that's pretty cool. And then this C, that's a flat 7th chord, alright? Or a flat 7th function, which is essentially a mixolydian function to the D. Alright, so a whole step below, giving it flatted 7th. Or a flatted 2 to the B minor. Alright, if you want to consider that a temporary 1. We're basically hitting both the relative major and the relative minor of one chord progression, but it's connected by a chord that's not in the scale at all. Now, there is another explanation for how that E minor goes down, right? D, here's the E minor. E minor to the C, the relationship there is a flatted 6, which, if you ever listen to Pink Floyd or Iron Maiden or any of those bands, that E minor to C has an extremely intimate relationship and a very heartfelt and emotional sound as well. So that's another parallel you can draw, okay? And that B minor is just the relative minor, of course. Now, of course, the likelihood of you having a guitar tuned in E flat standard, all right, at your disposal as soon as you're done playing that previous part is probably pretty slim, unless you have a guitar on the stick like all the cool guys have. But we're not cool, so we don't have a guitar on a stick. So I'm going to show you how to play it the real way without any open voicings here, alright? So basically, we're back in our flat key, alright? So not D anymore, it's D flat. Check it out. D flat as the 1 to E flat minor. Now admittedly, this does not sound as good as the open E minor voicing we had on the acoustic guitar, but it'll have to do. And you know what? It'll sound fine. Hey, Rich Williams still does this live like this to this day. So, hey, can't knock the guy who was originally there in the first place, right? But it sounds fine. Still the 1 to the 2 chord. And then there's B flat. There's B, I'm sorry. B natural, which I'm going to call a C flat. Alright? I know you're all going to get mad at me, but think about it this way. We go to a B flat minor. We already have a type of B in our key. So if we already have a B in our key, that can only mean one thing. This has to be a C flat, not a B natural. So don't you dare call it B natural. In order for it to be a flatted 7th, it has to be a C, right? Check this out. Check this out. Ready? D flat, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a B, but it's not. Because guess what? We just hit a B flat. That's a 6. So this is a C flat going to a D. You have to use all of the letters. Alright? All of the letters in order to complete a scale. That's what I'm trying to tell you. One more time. Such a nice throwback sound. Like I said, very 1960s. And I'm so much better now that I'm looking and seeing it all. And for the first time, we're going to go into another riff. And coming back strong into our original key of B flat minor, we hit the first pre-chorus section, which has 2 guitar layers to go over. Let's go over the bottom layer. And this layer simply continues the driving power chord rhythm that we had from before. Once again, we're in B flat. We started on beat 4, and it's a very driving, heavy 8th note rhythm. So 1, 2, 3. transition going into the next part. Now, as you can tell, this is a very motorcycle-laden, sunglasses type of riff. This is the badass type of shit that Kansas was trying to do back in the day. The hard rock for the masses, alright? Full bro dude energy coming off that exhaust pipe. Now, essentially, like I said, we hit beat 4, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and. Alright, pretty simple idea, right? A little bit of syncopation the second time, but just going between B flat, D flat, E flat, B flat, and E flat. Okay, so 3 chords make up this whole thing, but really we're just using the root, flat third, and fourth. It's basically Green Onions by Booker T. Except in the complete wrong key and way too high. Let's stop doing that. Sounds like sunshine. Here we go. So then we just do the exact same thing down in F, but in a low position. We got to slide around a whole lot. Like we're wanking our guitars. Bad people. And then we go right back into the B flat. And this is also basically a 3-phrased idea, all right? We only have 3 different things. We have the B flat once, the F once, I count that as the second phrase, and then the third phrase. So it has an odd phrasing going along here, all right? 3 parts to make up the entirety of the whole. And not to mention, the strong beat is on beat 3, when ordinarily your beats would be on beat 1, maybe even beat 2, but beat 3 being the absolute strong beat is a very strange and almost off-putting type of thing, but it feels pretty badass in this context. And okay, that part does sound pretty cool, but it doesn't sound cool enough yet. Let's add another layer on top of that. All this higher layer is doing is using the root notes doubled on top, on the octave of the lower root, to give it a little extra thickness and richness. Just like Rich Williams. Here we go. Ready? Check it out. Same rhythm and everything. And we don't even have to move positions. Look at that. Did anybody miss that? Do I have to explain anything? Like I said, here we have explicitly the root, flat third, and the fourth. Same exact rhythm. Nothing crazy. And then we just hop down to the A string and do the exact same thing, and it'll be an F. We don't even have to move. It's the easiest thing. Back to the B flat. And then just mimic the exact same rhythm you were doing on the low power chords. It basically just turns this sort of 2-note power chord into a 3-note power chord, but using 2 guitars to do so in the process. Very complex way to play a power chord, Kansas. And that seems to be a pretty common technique of progressive rock bands of this time period, to have a power chord rhythm being played, and then have a single note rhythm doing the exact same thing on the top, but maybe doing a 5th harmony or the root, just like we saw before. You know, bands like Kansas, Boston, all those heavy-hitting progressive rock bands of the time, the big epic arena rock. Probably even Rush has done this as well, even though they only have 1 guitar player. The world may never know, but if you do have this many guitar players, and well, namely it's just 2, you got to find creative ways to utilize the 2 of them, even if you have something incredibly simple. Now, another common technique of bands like this, especially of Kansas, is to outline an underlying chord progression with a moving riff underneath using single notes. And that's exactly what happens with this first chorus riff. So let's check that out. It is a little windy, but nothing too crazy going on here. But we do have some strange accents. Very 8th note heavy. And yeah, we're just gonna have some fun hitting on beat 3 and beat 2 real hard. Just like this, real slow. That's beat 3. 2. Pretty cool. Alright, so each set of accents there actually ends a little bit sooner than the previous one. So that's kind of cool. It's like a shrinking riff that goes along. Once again, it's a 3-part idea, so odd. Very, very odd. I know progressive rock bands are known for odd time signatures, but this is an odd form. An odd form within the song. That sounds totally natural too. It doesn't sound odd, but it is. Check it out. Literally odd. So this basically represents 3 different chords. G flat, D flat, and then finally B flat. Alright, so that's the flat 6, right? To the 1, the relative major, we'll call it the flat 3. And then a minor 1. Relative minor, right? Very simple. Sounds like something Tom Petty would play or the Ramones, but we're a little bit more technically advanced than that because we're playing this riff. So ready? We got 2, 4, 6, which is basically 1, 2, 3, and 5 of the G flat chord. That's all that is. 1, 2, 3, and 5 of the G flat chord, alright? Then we go to this. Alright, now that uses a B flat minor pentatonic idea, but we're really going 3, 2, 1, 6 on the D flat chord. That's Mary Had a Little Lamb. Alright, so keep that in mind. Always look for your Mary Had a Little Lambs whenever they're kind of doing any kind of analysis like this, right? Alright, the final part goes like this. We just end it off with a nice B flat minor pentatonic, alright? Then the second half, or the second third I should say, goes like this. We have a little pull off there with the 16th notes, giving us a nice hard second beat, downbeat, and an accent right there. So nothing really crazy going on here. It's just the outlining some notes of the specific chords and then doing a pentatonic ending. All right, and then the final ending, the third half. We all know it's not a third half, but here it is. It's going to be a third half. We are creating things musically we never thought possible, and mathematically we never thought possible. So there are 3 halves to this whole section here. Check this out. So third half. That ends on 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and on the and of 4, anticipating the next measure, which is right on the E flat. Alright, so really it ends on the 4 chord the last time around. So let me play it one more time and I'll kind of call out the chords as they're going. G flat, D flat, B flat minor, G flat, D flat, B flat minor. Nothing crazy in the chord progression. You just got to make sure you're moving along and using those proper accentuations. The articulation is super important here, right? Those notes are played straight, but this is a serious slide. You want to really slide from the 6th to the 8th there, otherwise you're not going to get the desired effect. And also when you stop, nice vibrato on those B flats. Slide, vibrato. So you gotta slide and vibe to roll with the Kansas guys. Coming out of that first chorus, we have yet another introduction that has 3 layers. 2 of which being exactly the same, being the power chords and that really simple line with the 2 notes. But the guitar solo portion of it changes into this repetitive riff. So essentially switching gears and switching roles. This new octave riff is going to be repeated throughout the future intros that we hear. And it's a little bit tricky, so we got to get it right the first time, the second time, the third time, and the final time as well, and all the times in between. Check it out. 3, 4. Pretty unique idea, I have to say, right? There's a lot of sliding around with this, and we're not quite playing octaves all the time. We're actually using the low E string to kind of take a break and streamline the process a little bit. So check this out. We actually have to slide into the 8th fret here, 8th and 10th. That's the note F, and we're scaling down the B flat minor scale like this. Watch. And then we use the single note on the low E string to hit a very fast 16th note to go into this. Alright, so let me play that again. Ready? 1 and 2 and so a pretty tricky syncopation there, right? It's you gotta get it extra clean with the pick as well, right? A little bit of a trick of the trade here. When you're playing these sort of octaves, right? You want to make sure your pointer finger is kind of muting all the other strings below it or above it, because you want to be able to rip just like that. You want to rip your pick all the way through everything, but you're not going to be able to do that if you don't mute the strings. So you got to make sure you're doing that. Right? Proper muting is basically everything when it comes to guitar playing here, alright? So one more time on that part, that first half. You just hold it, a little bit of vibrato. The next part goes like this, second half. A little jazzy toward the end, right? Almost a little Wes Montgomery if you use distortion. Check it out. We're scaling down. All the way down to the flatted 7th. So we're hitting that A flat down below, and then this. Nice little ending there, sliding from the root to the 2nd, or better yet, the 9th into the root. And only using one pick. One more time, super slow. Make sure to get those slides in the right spot. And pluck everything except when I tell you not to, right? Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very jazzy feel and pretty unique, even for this band. It's kind of odd that this repetition waits until the 2nd intro section to come in, but hey, I'm not complaining. Just gives us some more variations to keep us entertained, right? The next unique section that happens after chorus 2 is the bridge section, which has 2 guitars going simultaneously, one playing a badass blues riff underneath, and the other playing a badass guitar solo up on the top. Let's go over the badass blues riff underneath first. Talk about an all-American badass riff. Let's get deep inside that bojangle now, won't we? And I absolutely love this riff, so if I start bopping along and losing my mind, that's why. I love this frickin' riff. Here we go. We're in a new key, C sharp minor. So we've gone up a minor 3rd from B flat minor. Alright? Totally different key here, but we're basically staying in a static C sharp minor riff here. So I'll play it nice and slow. Check it out. Ready? This big stretchy chord to start. 4th fret, 2nd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret. Alright, like this. Oh yeah. You gotta play it with pure attitude. Hold on. This ain't right. This ain't right. I gotta get my sunglasses on for this one, people. And I don't care if it's feeding back. It's rock and roll, baby. That's right, we're going here. If I can see what I'm doing, something's not right. So I gotta make sure I ruin my depth perception with these sunglasses here. The Matrix style, Neo from the Matrix, taking the red pill of guitar. And I got a red guitar over here. Here we go, ready? Let's go into that again. C sharp minor 7 is the first chord, and it looks like that. And you're basically doing a super syncopated 16th note thing, right? Ba-da. Okay, that's before the first beat even ends. 1 up, and that little move right there, check that out. Yeah, there's a lot of that in Kansas riffs. It's basically kind of like a grace note, but it does count as a 16th in there. You're actually doing a hammer-on, alright? To get into the next thing. So before going into the 4th fret, you gotta hit that 3rd fret again. Look at that. Oh yeah. almost like the 3rd and 4th fret are intertwined on that one note. Now essentially all that's doing is going from the 4th scale degree to the blue note, the flatted 5th, resolving right into the 5th, and then coming up to the flat 7th in the root. Alright, so very nice. Doesn't stop there. We have to go into this part. This is essentially like this is a C sharp minor pentatonic riff right here, but once again, you gotta add attitude to it, man. You can't just play these notes straight. You have to go a little bit of a bend on that 2nd fret up there, right? That's the minor 3rd. Kansas loves outlining their minor 3rds. And then with a badass rhythm at the end. Bum, bum, ba-dum, right? And then we just loop around and do it again. It's also got big Jimi Hendrix vibes, does it not? Except it's not a major chord with a minor 3rd or sharp 9th. It's just a strict C sharp minor 7. But I just can't help but be reminded of Purple Haze and all the great songs, you know, Fire, Foxy Lady, all that good crapola that Jimi Hendrix gave us. Rest in peace to the king, the monster. What a monster that guy was. He was a totally different animal, all right? I'm not even going to get into that because I'll be wasting way too much time, but here we go. Oh yeah, I forgot. The ending, all right? Basically play it 5 times through, and on the 6th time we go like this. Last ending, which basically modulates back into the B flat very smoothly, I might add. So basically you got to hit these 2 notes and then hammer onto the 2nd and 4th on the A string. So pick on the E and then hammer on the A. And then you got to hammer 4-6, 4-6 on the same one. So basically just transfer right back in to that B flat minor. It's a perfect way to get back into it. And it's basically using the same notes from the chorus. So that's how we're getting back and forth between these 2 keys, alright? Or really just back into the original key. One more time for the road, people. Let's do it. Watch. Let's play it at full speed. Oh, man. I love that. Just groove. Come on. Groove with me. Oh, yeah. We're not done yet. Now we're done. Ready. Right back in like nothing ever happened. The badassness of badassery. Let me turn the page. Let's get on to the next part, why don't we, right? With that riff sounding alarms, sounding the alarm over everything. We got basically 17,000 motorcycles with this one. We're riding off into the sunset, right into the Topeka fields, into a Topeka tornado. This is what I'm going to call this guitar solo, the Topeka Tornado from Mr. Kerry Livgren, the mastermind of Kansas himself. Let's bring it on, baby. Bring on the massive 300-mile-per-hour winds on this nasty tornado of a guitar solo. So just like the first solo in this song, there are some very long-winded passages that we have to get through in one breath. So I'm going to kind of split them up in the best way that I can and essentially just get you through this as painlessly as possible. So here's the first lick. Ready? We got this. Alright, so as you can tell, we're in pure blues heaven right now, okay? And I got my Les Paul here as well, so it's going to sound even better. There's even a little bit of a phase effect on this as well. Maybe a tiny little bit of chorus to just add to that attitude, right? And we're basically doing this double stop bend like this. Basically, it outlines the C sharp minor 7 and just tells the audience that we're going full-blown blues mode on this mother, all right? So essentially you're going like this. You got the 11th fret here, 12th fret. You're going to bend the 11th fret a whole step, and then on the and of that one and the and of that, right, you're going to gradually release that bend, all right? So much attitude has to be put into this. And then right after that, you got to hit a hammer and then come back into that 9th fret. That is the flatted 3rd, by the way. And I know that lick wasn't very long-winded, but this next one is, so please pay attention, people. And it starts on the and of 2, and we have some grace notes to look out for. Check it out. Ready? 1, 2. That's the flatted 3rd again, by the way, but it is bending away from it, to be fair. So not totally the flatted 3rd, but it does hit the same exact fret. So let's take a look at that. We got some rhythmic stuff. We have 2 16th notes starting it off on the and of B2. 1, 2. And then followed by a 16th note triplet. Really fast. Now I would use the pinky and the pointer and the ring here, because we're going to have to hit a grace note right after that. 1, 2. That's right. Very, very difficult to do, and pretty much everything's picked except for that really fast one. Right when you start getting to that descending line, that's where the picking really begins. And yeah, you have to do a grace note from the 11th into the 10th fret. That's going into the flatted 5th. That's not a small thing. Okay? We have to make sure we're getting this articulation, because it really adds to the uniqueness and the character of Carrie Livgren's guitar playing. We'll play it slowly one more time. 1, 2. Now once you get down to that low C sharp, we got to come back up here, 9, 7, and then back up. Straight pentatonic. Gradual nice bend, basically a whole step there, but once again you're on that flat 3rd position. One more time for the road. It's basically straight 16th notes until the very end. Here we go. 1, 2. Now that run is technically not over. I decided to put a little bit of break in here so we can just get into this transitional idea that eventually leads us into a longer version of the lick that we just played. Alright, so this solo is basically non-stop, so you're going to have to put all the pieces together afterwards. But let's take a look at what we got going on here. Alright, big syncopated bends. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it, basically. It comes off of the previous lick. Watch. 1, 2. And you gotta make sure you hit that last set of notes, right, on beat 3. 3 and a 4. So watch this. 3 and a 4. Now that second bend just before that, that's basically a step and a half on that 11th fret, alright? So you're getting all the way up to the note A, specifically here. Just to add enough attitude onto it, alright? So this is super, super bluesy. You can tell that Carrie Livgren really wanted to let out his heavy blues during this part, you know? You can only play this Bach, you can only play this classical stuff for so long, or this neoclassicism for so long, before you just got to rip into a blues solo. Very similar to how Frank Zappa was thinking. Right? Now let's do it one more time. Ready? So we got just a little bit of a transitional riff, which is going to bring us into a familiar lick once again. Now before getting to that next lick, let's play all of those licks up to this point so we don't get lost in the sauce. Here we go. Ready? From the top of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, now we can continue into a significantly longer pentatonic run that is reminiscent of that second lick we learned. Alright, so let's unpack that a little bit. We started exactly the same that we did lick 2, just like this, but on beat 1. It's not on an upbeat this time, it's on a downbeat. That's all the same, alright? That literally doesn't change. But when we hit into the second half, that's the only part that changes. You want to make sure you're reading all these pentatonic lines exactly how they are on the tab. Watch, one more time. Alright, so once you get that far, basically you got to go up this weird, almost like a quartal voicing. A quartal voicing is one that uses all sus4s. It's a very fusion-based idea, but played within the blues, alright? And it does sound kind of weird when he plays it like this in the song. It's just, that has a very strange vibe to it. So, nice. Now you want to make sure you're hitting that grace note in the same location. Right? Same pattern. And those double notes on 12. Then double notes on 9. And that nice syncopated note on the and of that final beat there. Alright, one more time just for the road. I'll play it full speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that takes care of the longest running singular part of the solo, but doesn't mean we don't have some challenging bits to take care of still. And this comes in right on the downbeat of 2 with a slurry of Chuck Berry style ideas here. It's a repetition. Ready? 1. Alright, so as you can tell, we have that Chuck Berry style idea coming right off of this. That little pentatonic lead in right on the downbeat. So we're basically starting this on shaky ground. So on an upbeat for that whole Chuck Berry thing. So essentially, you're going to bend that 11th fret up a whole step. And then you're going to hit the 9th fret and 9th fret of the B string and E string, right? Basically, you have to do all alternate picking there, alright? And you got to make sure you're really going. Alright, all 16th notes. 5 times in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then into a nice 1.5-step bend. Once again on the flatted 3rd. And then eventually into a little bit of a, a hammer-on pull on that one, but that's going to come a little bit later. But here, one more time. Ready? 1, 2. Very, very awesome riff. Worthy of these sunglasses. Now this solo has a habit of ending on a huge bend, like that, and then starting up another slurry of notes coming in after the fact, and this next lick is no different. Here it is, ready? Alright, so that's pretty cool. That goes all the way from the high E down to the A string, alright, in a couple different positions here. So basically we're going like this. We have this little pickup after the bends. Alright, that's one pull-off, 16th notes. Then we have that double-double pull-off with a 16th-note triplet rhythm. So, and then we do a hard stop there, and then a pickup. Alright, now this is the right before we hit the downbeat, alright, of 2. Alright, so that 9th fret is really the downbeat, with the 12th fret being the syncopation, alright? Now we actually have to do this. We go down the blues scale, basically straight through, but we have another grace note from the 12th to the 11th fret. And then we go then we have to repeat this. Alright, so real slow. Let's do that whole thing. Now full speed. Alright, I keep forgetting that one part. Okay, so coming in out of the last part like this. Alright, so that's where you do the repetition. It's on the G string, not on the D string. I'm sorry. So once again. And then ending on the flat third down at the bottom once again, too. So I'm seeing a pattern here, okay? Lots of blues scales, though. Blues, 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 and more blues, okay? The next and final lick has more 16th note runs coming in at unexpected times. And once again, it's capped off with a 1.5 bend. I think Kerry Livgren really likes his 1.5 bends. His step and a half bends. And this one only has one beat in between the previous lick and this one, and it starts on the and of 2. Goes like this. Ready? 1, 2. Alright, so let's take that slowly. 1, 2. All that put together is what makes this special. Alright, so we got to slide from the 2nd fret into the 4th. We're in a lower register here. Still C sharp minor pentatonic, but totally different position than what we've seen so far. Got to slide in on the and of 2 and so. Actually 4 and at the end, but watch again. Ready? Slide from the 2 to the 4. 2, 4, 2, 4, 4, 2. There's a lot of that going on, right? Now you're going to do a slide on those last 4 notes. Watch, slide, and then pick both of those notes, but don't pick the final bend, and then slide right out of it, basically on the and of 4. So. Notice how I didn't pick the last bend. I just hit the previous note with enough gusto to leave that sustain all the way toward that part. And I can't help but think of Jerry Cantrell's guitar playing within this. It reminds me of that one lick in Man in the Box. Or better yet, in E flat. That's basically that 1.5 bend, just like the one we just ended on. Alright, so couldn't help but bring that up because I've been covering a lot of Alice in Chains on this channel as well. So some parallels to be drawn here. Alright, let's get that solo in its entirety, nice and slow here. Be sure to follow along exactly with these different pentatonic patterns, especially the longer ones and the ones with the grace notes. Always understand what beat you're on at all times. Alright, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you go. Now, when I was a little bit younger, I didn't exactly appreciate this heavy blues style until now, and now I'm really, really digging it. And it's especially ironic since the guitar player, Kerry Livgren, comes from a very classical background, and he's known for his very bombastic and complex, intricate compositions, and here, he's just ripping the blues, alright? Now, it is pretty complex and intricate in its own right, and very rhythmically complex as well, and pretty well composed, but he really just likes to jam. That's kind of the funny part, and I think that makes him a very fun guy. Not like a mushroom, but like just a fun guy in general. I like to hang out with him at the bar, have a couple drinks. He probably doesn't drink because he's born again, but I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know what the rules are here, people, but I know that that's a great solo, and that flat third, alright, of the C sharp minor, that's the note E on top of the C sharp, is hit so many different times, right? It's hit at the beginning. That's the first one, right? Then after this big long, it does it again, bends out of it, of course, but I think it counts, right? And then basically we hit it a bunch of other times coming out of there as well, right? So it's just like big bends, and we hit the flat third once again. Can you believe it? This part doesn't. Watch this. That's the flatted third once again. So we have quite a few of them. 5 times total, actually, right? And that's the final one right there. Right? Actually, it's not. The last one's a flatted third as well. So I guess that's 6 times, actually. So 6 times on that flatted third. So, which is also another really cool pattern here that I'm recognizing. That Kerry Livgren solos, and really with this Kansas style, that flatted third is really embraced. And it's hit really, really hard too, with a very, very heavy blues style, which I think sets this band apart from a lot of the progressive rock contemporaries, right? They can do all the crazy fast runs and the time signature changes like anybody else, but this blues style is definitely indicative of an American style, and I like that. Alright, now I think I could take these sunglasses off here, not because the rest of the song isn't cool enough to warrant it, but because I literally can't see anymore. I've gone blind with darkness, and my motorcycle exhaust has gone into my eyeballs and fogged up my sunglasses so I can't see anymore. Now, although this outro does have 2 guitar parts playing simultaneously, this is the one that you're going to hear most over the top. So we're going to go over that one first. And it starts with 3 bars of 4/4. Check it out. A really, really, really cool idea, right? Even when you play it slow, it sounds cool. Getting it up to speed is very difficult, but we'll describe how to get it up to speed in just a moment. Let's talk about some of these chords here. So we have perfect 4th intervals, basically outlining this B flat minor 7 blues idea, right? Going from this. Alright, so you gotta make sure you get that right rhythm going, right? It's 1, and E, 4 and 1, and E, 4 and 1, and E, 4 and then right into that next part, right? So this is all in 4, alright? So I just counted all that in 4/4 so you can hear it. 3 bars of that. Once again, another odd amount of bars and phrases, right? This whole song has been filled with odd phrasings and bar numbers here, right? Now this final part, all right? It basically starts on the all right? So the final 16th note. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a, and then that whole ending actually stops before the final beat. Alright? And that's all in 3/4, right? 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1. Alright? Just with some syncopation at the end, that's 2 bars of 3. Alright? So 3 bars of 4, 2 bars of 3. It's almost like there's 1 less bar of the time signature that we are engaging in here. Alright? But very, very, very tricky. Now, watch the fingers on this, right? You really got to try and be as legato as possible, right? Starting off with a pull-off while picking that first note. This is the downbeat, though. 1 and now you got to do the pull-off, pick, pick, pull-off, pick, pick, pull-off, pick, pick, and then pick, 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 hammer, pick, pick. Really got to drive that home. One more time. Pick, pull off, pick, pick, pull off, pick, pick, pull off, pick, 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 hammer, pick, boom, and on that syncopated one, right? And that's how you got to do it, man. And you got to make sure you're alternating your pick strokes in between. pick, pick, pull up, pick, pick, pull up, pick, pick. Alright? Get that in your skull now, otherwise you're never going to get this down at full speed. Pretty damn awesome though, if I must say myself. I'll play it one more time from the very beginning of it. Ready? E, 4 E, 1, Very cool. Now that's not quite the end. We still have one more layer that happens underneath, and that's the lower rhythm guitar. That plays along with some of it, but just take a listen for yourself and check it out. Let's tackle that real quick. So that low note that comes in actually comes in on the very last 16th note of the previous beat. All right, the end of the measure. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this one has a little bit more in the way of picking because we're in a different position. So we have to use different ideas here. So let's just take a look at that. We have those 3 bars of 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That takes care of the 4/4. Nothing crazy there. Same rhythm, same notes. We're just in a lower octave now for this whole thing. Remember this? Well, we're going to be down here. So the articulation is not going to be exactly the same because of the position work. But check it out. We're going to start still like this, and or pull off, I should say. Pick, pull off, pick, pick, pull off. Pick, 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 pull off. All right, once again. Pick, pull off, pick, pick, pull off, pick, 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 pull off. We got a lot more picking to do here. Pick, 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 pull off. And then here, that's all picked. So is that. And we have this little gradual bend right before we hit the final note. So, pull off, pick, pick, pull off, pick, 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 pull off, pick, 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 pull off. Cool. One more time from the top of that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Little vibrato, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Woo! And with that, let's get both of those parts together in a beautiful layered guitar bliss of octaves and odd time signatures. Alright everybody, that's going to do it. Thanks so much for coming along this journey on the RomanOva music channel. Hopefully these Kansas episodes have been cool for you. Leftoverture is one of my favorite albums, and this song always stuck out as being maybe an unsung single, you know? A single that should have had more potential than it, eventually performed itself to have, right? Carry On Wayward Son definitely dominated the airwaves, while this one kind of remained a total B-side. The rest of the album remained a total B-side, actually. It was that one song that really gave him the springboard into fame and stardom and arena rock type of outfit, right? But I still think it's a classic song, straightforward rocker. Not too much going on, just the 2 guitars, sometimes 3. All right, sometimes 3. Organ, not a lot of keys going on in this song. It's a very guitar-driven idea. Still have those vocal harmonies in there, though, so we can't forget that. Really, really great stuff. A lot of layers, just like any other song. But still, it's simplistic. It's a little more simplistic, which I kind of enjoyed. All right, I enjoyed that bluesy, heavy, rock, almost Americana type of heavy blues that we were getting, right? True American rock and roll. All right, that's what we're getting here with Kansas. Well, hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoy making it for the most part. These are very tiring, so by the end I'm just like, oh man, I can't even think of what to say. If you'd like to further support the channel, you can leave a like on the video, leave a comment on the video, a mean comment, a nice comment, a heartwarming comment, maybe something absolutely horrific. I don't care. Give me some engagement. There's another way you can support the channel. you can go to my Patreon or my Subscribe Star, and you can pledge any amount of money you want per month to ensure that I keep doing this. All right? It's any little bit helps, and it really gives me that extra push. You know, it motivates me to do this, you know. I'm already motivated enough to do it, but, you know, having that extra push really does make it feel like I'm doing something of worth, you know what I'm saying? You could also leave a tip on my PayPal, just like a one-time type of thing. And if you want, you can check out my website, www.romanovamusic.com. You can sign up for private lessons with me. I do give those, by the way. I've been doing it for quite some time. And, you know, if you want to further learn some other stuff, if you feel stuck in your playing and you want to expand your ideas, if you're just playing in the same pentatonic scale pattern over and over again, I can help you get out of that. Yeah, theory, harmony, composition. Hell, maybe you got to learn this song and you need to dive a little bit deeper into the internal complexities of it. You need even more information than what I gave you here. Well, you can contact me, and that's how you get the lessons going. All right? All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.